Welcome to the Casual Shooters Podcast, your premier podcast for the casual shooter. I am your host, David Riddle. My guest today is actually an inventor. Not your typical competition shooter that I would have on or some other fashion of shooter. However, not saying he doesn't have a shooting background, just that he has invented a dual picture iron sight system. He's also the founder of North Forest Arms. If you would, join me in welcoming to the show, Mr. John Dees. How are you, John?
Doing very well, David. Thanks for having me here.
You're welcome. If you would, take a moment and introduce yourself.
Well, you already did. I'm John Dees. I invented the dual picture sight. I'm
All
not
right.
a competition shooter, but I'm a little more on the casual side of things, but I like to think I'm a decent shot as is. And we've had excellent responses for the design from much more dedicated shooters than either of us, I believe.
All right. Well, I mean, you fit the definition. You're a casual shooter. So here we go. So, John, what I like to do is start with some icebreaker questions. It gets the hard drive spinning, makes you sweat a little bit, and then the rest of the conversation's easy.
Mm-hmm.
Number one, what's your favorite movie?
Good question. My dad raised me on a lot of Westerns. That might have had some influence, so that's a good one, yeah. Recently, I did enjoy The Highwaymen. That was a good one. Kevin Costner, if you remember that one. The Bonnie and Clyde.
Okay.
That was a nice one. I do enjoy Eastwood stuff, especially the Dollar Trilogy, that kind of thing.
All right. Yeah, my favorite is an Eastwood movie, but it's The Outlaw Josie Wales.
That's one of his best for sure.
Yeah, and I will say I saw Unforgiven in the theaters when it came out, and it surprised me how really, really good that was. So I watch between Outlaw Josie Wales and Unforgiven probably once a month. I watch one or the other.
Wish I had that kind of movie time, but yeah, they're good ones to watch for sure.
Yeah. All right. Assuming you've read a book in your life, what's your favorite book?
I mean, besides the Bible, of course, that kind of as a
Bible
kid,
works.
it has the top rank by definition.
Okay. Yep, it's definitely a book.
The big book.
It is. Sometimes you have to read it a couple times to figure it out.
I'm still rereading. I'm still figuring stuff out.
Of course. It seems you do have a shooting background. So what is your favorite gun and your favorite caliber? And they don't have to be intertwined. Like your favorite gun could be a 45 and your favorite caliber a 22.
Of course. But yeah, guns are in the end tools, and you want the right tool for the right job. You don't take a hammer to a saw situation. You don't take a saw to a hammer situation. But the one I practice with most and the one I have a bit of an affection for is my Walther PDP, because that's what I carry the most. I'm just familiar with it. 9mm because that has a good balance between stopping power and affordability. 45 ACP is awesome, but it's just so expensive.
It is. And typically the number of rounds that it holds is significantly reduced compared to 9.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe not so much in the single stack realm, but in a double stack, there's definitely a difference. Now that we've got the hard part out of the way, what is exactly your shooting background?
I actually invented this fairly young. The design kind of first coming to me back in my early 20s. So I was actually a range officer then, which it might not be the highest end of shooting there, but it did give me a lot of chance to observe people starting to learn. Bit of a martial arts geek, so I also learned a lot about just how the human body reacts to stress and fighting the difference between either the dojo or the range and the actual application. And I did some thinking about that, and one day while dry firing, I think it was, I noticed that when I went for a flashlight picture, I was looking more in the middle of the sight. When I wanted a very precise sight picture for a very good trigger control or what have you, I looked at the very top of the front sight. And somewhere in there that got me, why am I actually have the same shape for these two different things? And after a good deal of study and some 3D prints and everything, I came out with something that I think has a lot better visual feedback for the shooter in every situation.
How much shooting had you done before you became an RO? Like, how old were you when you first started shooting?
I think I started seriously getting into it around 15, though before then there was always some extra stuff. So I had a fair amount of years and a lot of dry fire. For a while there, I dry fired every single day.
Now, when you turned, or at 21, when you were an RO, I assume that was the point where you started carrying a gun for self-defense?
I was in Maryland then, so actually no, I had to get out of
Oh.
there first. That was just, you know how the laws are.
Yeah. Yeah, that's yeah. I live in Virginia, and I try not to go further north than I am in, which is an hour south of DC. So Northern Virginia is like Southern Maryland at this point. So
It has
not
been
good.
for a while, sadly.
Yeah, it
I'm in North
has.
Carolina right now, but it's
A bit easier here, on that front at least.
Right.
Pretty humid today, but can't complain. It's humid there too.
So did you focus more on the defensive application of shooting then?
That was definitely my main interest, especially back then. Um, One thing is just kind of what most people would buy a handgun for. The casual shooter isn't really after trophies as much as he is after some enjoyment, some good tradition, and of course protection. Because in the end, that's what the handgun's designed to do. It's a defensive weapon first and foremost.
I would definitely say the majority of Americans own them just to go to the range and shoot and have fun, or for personal carry.
Mm-hmm.
There are very few of them that are hardcore competition shooters. Before we get into the actual sights and stuff, I want to cover a couple of things. One of the things you have said is that failures are cognitive, not mechanical. What do you mean by that?
I think that was actually Taylor helping me with the wording there. But I think it was Yogi Berra who said 90% of the game is mental, the other half is physical. You're familiar with that one? Shooting is
Yep.
very much a mental game in the end, both on the range and in actual application. And in the end, the cognitive and the mechanical aren't too different. Say you had a balance beam on the ground just a few inches off, and someone said, "I bet you $5 you can't walk across that." You probably think, "Hey, cool, $5." But if you had the same balance beam over a 10-story drop, you probably think, "I'm just not going to take that," because it's mechanically the same problem. It's no more difficult. But with the danger there, suddenly you have fear, adrenaline, shakiness, and chance of you falling off goes way up.
Risk versus reward there.
It's also on the instinctive level. You can't entirely get away from it, though you can learn to manage it to a large extent, and that's a lot of what the fighting arts are all about, learning to manage that.
Which martial art was it again?
Back then, I was studying MMA and Krav Maga and BJJ and stuff like that, but I've gone through various others since then.
How much of that played a part in your sight development?
I got a lot
And
of
you're-
books on the subjects back then, too. And yeah, one of the things that really kept striking me was the adrenaline rush. I'm calling it the chemical cocktail these days. It's that part that all that stuff goes in your bloodstream when danger happens. And as you can imagine, shooting especially is something that's susceptible to that kind of chemical rush degrading your skills. When does have an evolutionary aspect to it, decreases pain, all that, but it makes it harder to do things like focus on your front sight, get proper trigger control, etc.
Right. There's a lot of physiological changes under stress.
Yeah, there's plenty of good resources on that out there that people can look up, scientific details. But we just need to know blood goes hot, things get harder, you gotta learn to manage it, and you'll never be able to turn it off. And if you do learn to turn it off, you should probably see a doctor.
Maybe. You have extreme control over your own body. How do you think the sight system you developed helps people in those high stress situations?
My father actually has an excellent story about this for the speed sight version. We have the two versions in the same sight picture, the speed and the precision. And you've seen the sights, I'm sure, at least in images of them.
Yeah.
So you know what the sight picture looks like. So that circle and circle thing, that actually draws the eye very naturally. You want to align those circles, and it's pretty easy to test, actually. So my father was actually having drinks with some people, or a work thing a while back. He was telling them about this design, and they're kind of going on, yeah, that sounds nice. Not really buying it. And he points to their coasters, and every single one of them put their round glass perfectly in the center of the coaster, without thinking at all. It's a reflex. So if you hold up, say, a ring and a ball, and just holding up for your eye, you'll find you kind of want to align them almost without really thinking. It draws the eye very naturally, and the alignment's kind of built in. So you build on a reflex that's already there. That makes it much less susceptible to falling apart during high stress. Because the 3D post thing works, but it's something you have to do consciously and mechanically. So by making the cognitive aspect easier, you make the mechanical aspect easier, and you greatly reduce the learning curve. You greatly increase your resilience under stress. Yeah, we've actually done tests. We had about a 20% increase on speed and accuracy with these things from first-time shooters. We've had reports. Jason Pike, a frontman tactical, former Navy SEAL, ran through various drills. And you know, as a former Navy SEAL, did all kind of stress testing. He reported an 18 to 23% increase in performance, depending on what they do and what their drill was. And
just by changing the sights.
Yeah, these from the factory irons or something more traditional notch and post to these. I can go into the more precise version too, if you like, what the advantages are there.
Let's hold off for just a second. Who was his audience that he got the 18 to 23% improvement from?
That's his own personal testing.
Okay.
Yeah.
So he personally experienced 18 to 23%.
Yes.
So yeah, now we can get into the more precise information if you like.
Again, we're talking about visual feedback on the situation. And with the more traditional fighting sights, for lack of a better term, with the very wide notch and the very wide post, it's pretty hard to get them precisely aligned because that's the design, is just to get it on the target and get them good enough. But this way you have your bullseye level precision for feedback, and under an adrenal dump, it might be difficult to get to, though it's easier if you start with the speed sight and move up. What this does, it opens up your tactical options, because fights don't happen in a vacuum. The majority take place close, but if you're going to bet on that, that's still kind of sad if you bet wrong. For example, a home owner might smartly set up their room as like a safe area, barricade it in if they hear something on the other side, and then they have cover. They probably have a good deal of distance down a hallway, and they have the time to get a very precise shot, which they'd like. That would be a good stopping power, and also less danger to any neighbors. And of course, police officers often have to go towards danger, so they have more tactical options than reacting. So you can easily switch between reactive and proactive in this case.
And I have the image up on the screen here. So you're saying the image on the right is the quicker for picking up your sights and putting rounds on target.
Yep, you see the dot, you center the dot, it goes very quickly. Actually had Matt Winklejohn of RTT Guns and Gear. We're talking to him just recently. Some of the new taller sights review. That review's not out yet. His old one is up. Yeah, he claims he's been using these in a lot of his CCW classes and such. A lot of people find it much easier to learn this sight picture than the traditional notch and post. Equal height, all that. And this he just gives and says, circle, circle, target.
Yeah, I mean, it does seem like it would be pretty intuitive to pick up and be able to shoot. Mm-hmm. I could see where if you're trying to be more precise with the image on the left, it could be a little slower, but the one on the right would definitely be pretty quick.
No matter how you slice it, you always have to choose where you hit on the speed precision balance. You can never shoot your most precise shot as fast as you possibly can. It's just not the way we're built. So, like I said, I gave you the options, and also the more precise one, because it cuts the target, lets you actually see very precisely where you're aiming, and the more fast one, you just put the dot on. More point and click interface there.
Is there anybody who's done any stuff that's more long-term testing to see how people have progressed with iron sight shooters, not just one day, but over multiple days with these?
We're trying to get those. Now that we have the taller sights out, reach out to a lot of older reviewers and asking them. But we've had a lot of people to say it works good for teaching, and we found in our own personal experience and with people we know that it really does decrease the learning curve, it seems. But I'm afraid I don't have any solid studies beyond that, for lack of a better term.
How long have these been on the market?
A few years now, actually. We've only really been selling them for about 2. I've been working at the company for a lot longer, though. You know how it is.
So they're still relatively new. I mean, you're probably still trying to get feedback on all this stuff.
We recently just came out with the co-witness sights, and we're getting feedback on that right now. We're very excited about that because this sight picture actually works with the red dot as opposed to just being existing alongside it.
What do you mean it works with the...
Yeah, so you have these sight pictures and you have the red dot window. And what we found is that we had one gentleman, a small YouTuber, Armed Forager, that's what his name is. He did a first test with these low because he got a low window. And, well, first of all, I should say that the parallax always throws things off very slightly no matter what you do. That's just the nature of the beast. He actually has a second follow-up video with the red dot off to show our sights were not off. But if you do the circle and circle and then you have the dot, then you have one more dot, very bright, very easy to pick up, and it keeps it right on that target, and there's just one more level of concentric circle. And then if you have the precision, you have one more reference point rather than the whole window, because that window will have it off slightly with parallax unless you're precisely centered. And here you have that point, and it's very easy to get. We've actually had a SRT team in Ohio, Special Response Team, basically SWAT with just a different name. And they took our iron sights over red dots, and what were their main reasons? One was tracking moving targets, which they found it much better with ours. And the other one was you can't really lose the dot with them, because if you bring up a red dot and it's got very low or no co-witness and you lose the dot, you're just kind of stuck there for a moment. You got to figure out where it is and everything. And that happens a lot very easily. And this works with the co-witness almost as a guide. You find our sights first, you go that speed, the dot's right there.
Yeah, that I would say that probably has something to do with them not dry firing much too, but I would say that I think if you're not dry firing much, iron sights are easier to acquire quicker if you're not spending a lot of time dry firing, because if you are with, because that tells me there's a presentation issue more than likely.
To you guys, but yeah. No matter how you slice it, we're always not trained as much as we really should. Unless you're
or would like.
Unless you're a professional, and even then I'm sure a few of them are thinking that way. So we're basically just trying to give you more bang for your buck with the sight picture. And we find it works. We've actually had what was his name? Let me look up who it was. It was Chad, and he was we presented our co-witness sights at Glock store. There it is. Chad, a former NSW operator, saw ours with a co-witness, and we were trying to explain it, and he just said it feels like a magic trick, which we find very high praise from someone like that. Yeah, we've really found that they are working well with the co-witness, and we've sent out a few for reviews at this point. It's all about greater feedback for the eye, visually speaking. Otherwise, because if you could shoot without sights, you could just point shoot anywhere you want, but we always have to have that visual aspect, I think.
I'm going to go back to this screen for a moment. Different picture, different image on the screen. This was from the video that Top Shot Dustin made with the sights. The first thing when I saw the sights and the graphics was, what is the impact difference between speed versus accuracy with the two different sighting options? And it doesn't look like there's a whole lot, but they definitely made a difference on the preciseness of the actual shooting.
Both the sight pictures are 0 for 25 yards. That's where they intersect. I think the bigger issue with the little more spread there is that, like I said, when you use the precision sight picture, you can bisect the target, and so see really where it's going. With the speed one, you use a circle, so with a dot like that, depending on the difference in distance and size and all that little tiny things, it might be covering the circle even, so you can't get it quite as precise. Which for a speed one is fine, because you're just going to put it on somebody probably.
Yeah, I mean, you're probably not shooting that far if you're going with speed.
Yeah, that's just to put it on the target, and so that's part of the reason why we did the longer range version, because otherwise it will actually cover the target once you get too far away and too precise and small. But with the precision one, you always see the target. It all depends on the situation. Unless it's retention shooting, but then you're not using your sights anyway.
You guys make them for a lot of different models. I was curious, have you considered making a more or less universal rear sight that would... Some people have fiber optic front sites and they like the fiber optic. There's many options for colors and whatnot. Do you think you would ever be able to create a universal rear sight that people could buy and put on and use with their fiber optic front?
I think we might be able to. Depends on how much demand we get for that sort of thing. If people want that sort of device, then let us know. We are offering blacked out rears for the taller versions, the co-witness versions. So that might be something we could easily slip into on that front. We are working with TrueGlow as well, so we'll see, maybe do something with that. Because they have that neat fiber optic tritium combination.
Regardless of color, they're all tritium, right?
Yes. Well, we have a polymer version to sell, but tritium's always green.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we call those a day sight. They're just polymer inserts, pure white. And it seems just that where the market is for night sights, the 3 dots, the biggest demand. Unless you're at co-witness, which sometimes likes a blacked out rear. So we're just following the market as it is. We're still a small company that we're growing very fast. And we're just trying to grow so we can get all the demand people want.
And those are what you're talking about there, where you've got some blacked out rear. You make them for Glocks, the Walther PDP, the Ruger RXM, some other ones, but you have chartreuse, orange, or white front. But you said the white is polymer, not steel?
The white is a tritium insert. If you go elsewhere on the website, you can find that we just have plain white polymer, regular height sights.
Okay.
All ones. The white is in fact still a tritium. That will still glow in the dark. You can see the vial in it, actually. A little green dot in the center is a tritium vial.
What's the demand been like of not your co-witness sites, but your regular iron sights here? What color has been most in demand?
Orange, I'd say, though it varies a lot. Glock Store is one of our partners, and they actually seem to sell a bit more chartreuse than orange.
Yeah, I had to actually look up chartreuse. I'm like, I have no idea what color chartreuse is, and I figured it was just basically lime.
Pretty much. It's kind of that yellow-green color.
Yeah. Yeah, if a lemon and a lime had a baby, that would be chartreuse.
Apparently, it's a pretty good balance. It's using a lot of safety stuff just to be visually seen.
Well, I'm not surprised that orange is popular because people like the color red in their red dots, where I prefer green in my dot. So I would probably go with the chartreuse. I would probably just call it green, though.
Well, if you go with an orange front, you have your green dot. It can be very Christmassy looking.
Oh, see, okay. Be very holiday-like.
You gotta have a little fun now and then.
Exactly.
But yeah, we're still early, so we're still figuring out what colors people prefer against what dot colors.
I see some of these are taller than others. Like the right half, they're at 0.25, 6-inch taller than our standard sights, 211 taller than our... Oh, these are all optic-ready suppressor height sights. Okay.
Yeah, we're kind of calling, just in the optical differential, the 211-inch taller are co-witness sights, and the 256 are suppressor height sights. Because that's what we found it works best with, but not all optics are created equal, and the deck height and all that is very different for a lot of them. And we found that these two options allow basically all of the options a normal person would have to get various co-witness heights that they want. Hollow suns and such. Vortex ST for the 211 generally works, and the taller ones work better for things like the Aimpoint Acro or the Vortex XL. And of course, looking at all suppressors, so they both work for that well enough.
Now, is that just because of the size of the optic itself?
Yeah, it all depends on that sort of thing. You know how it is with all those different plates and everything, too. It's not standard, so we did this to get the vast majority of options open for people very quickly.
So how long did it take you to... Because earlier you said that it zeroed for 25 yards. How long did it take you to figure out the height and the dimensions of the sights so that it would be zeroed at 25 yards?
Good question. That math was quite a while ago, I'm afraid. I couldn't tell you off the top of my head. But we figured it out well enough. It was basically just figuring out the zeroing at the different heights for different types. And we were able to put it in relatively quickly, I would say. It wasn't the biggest thing in the world.
Okay, a little bit of trial and error.
Always. I had a 3D printer for a lot of that stuff to help me out.
But everything you sell is steel, not...
Of course, that's just for proofs of concepts and getting the exact
Right.
details of the size it's done. And I actually started that before I got any manufacturing going, just to see if the design would work itself.
And you guys went with a black nitride coating.
Yep, that's what we sell right now.
How's the finish holding up on that?
So far, no complaints on anyone's side, including ours.
Now, you said you were on the range and you were trying to figure out a couple different things when you were the RO or an RO, and you're like, why am I getting the same sight picture on the range trying to do different things? How, from that moment that you were standing on the range and that first thought struck you till the time you had them created, what was that time frame?
You mean fully create or started drafting? Because I went through a lot of paper and pencil for a while there.
We'll say till your first proof of concept.
Oh, for the proof of concept, I needed to actually get a 3D printer first. I needed to actually think about it well enough, start believing in it myself, buy a 3D printer, which back then wasn't quite so easy as it is now. So a couple months.
That's actually not that bad. A couple of months.
Not that bad at all. In hindsight, it was a very interesting time. It's one of those things you didn't really plan to happen, you know? One day you're dry firing, you have a thought, and then you think maybe I'll just draw some stuff, see if anything works. Next thing you know, you're buying a 3D printer.
And you're in a rabbit hole.
I went through a lot of different models to try to get the exact sizes and such, right? To get the best bang for your buck overall.
Now, I believe you started with Glock pistols, right?
Yes.
Is that what you were shooting at the time? Is that why you started with that?
The simple fact is we went with Glock pistols because of market share. They got the most. And also, there's a lot of more Glock compatible ones out there, like the Walther PDP and the RXM. They all take Glock sights.
I think Canik might even take Glock sights. So I could be wrong. I'm not 100%, but I feel confident about making that statement. I'm sure somebody will correct me if I'm wrong.
Well, you got to have your confidence. That way, if you're right, you look good.
One of the things I noted was it said your extensive firearm knowledge or firearm history knowledge. What is your firearms history knowledge?
I'm just about a geek about that thing. I've read quite a bit. I'm not sure exactly what you want me to say. It's not like anyone gives me a diploma for these things.
Well, this is true. I mean, so have you just been into the history of guns or the...
I've always been an avid reader. I like to understand what I'm doing. And yeah, I read a lot about the history of firearms and their use over the years. I could go on a bit about that and how it relates to sights if you'd like. Because being formally taught sighted shooting as a standard gunfight method is actually relatively recent. I really only got off with Jeff Cooper in the 70s. Started with the American Pistol Institute, which is now Gunsight Academy. Less than 50 years when you think about it.
Do you think your sights will have a major impact going forward?
God willing, I'd like them to. We've got extremely good reviews. I just got another good review from a police officer just last night. He emailed us. He's going to do a YouTube review for it. I'll send you that stuff later when he comes out with it, of course, but he said he's going to put them on his EDC gun, and he's not even really an iron sight guy. So that's very high praise, I'd say.
Have you reached out to any of the any competition shooters to try out the sights?
We've tried a few. We've got our reviews going up. Lately, it's been just all hands on deck for everything. You're one of our new review reach outs here. But if you have any recommendations for anyone you think might be interested, do let us know. We're happy to talk with them.
Okay, yeah, I might have a few ideas. There's a few of them out there that are very, very good that, would probably take a look at them, and just because their knowledge of shooting and using iron sights at high level competition might actually help as well. Get that kind of feedback, because they're also teaching a lot of people the same stuff, shooting fast and accurate. This would be it seems to me to be very interesting to see if you had individuals using this in a competition class where, they're literally shooting as fast as they can, as accurately as possible, and how well these might help those individuals using iron sights.
It'd be interesting to see the results, that's for sure.
There are, I would say I follow statistics for USPSA between red dots and iron sights and the different divisions that people shoot. And I will definitely say that red dots are taking a huge chunk of the marketplace right now, the market share. But there are, for people who carry, they want to have the co-witness sights and other things like that, which are also competition shooters, So they're not just competition shooters, they're normal Americans that carry for protection as well. So you get a combination of the two.
Yeah, for a lot of normal Americans, I read an article just before I went to Glock Store's open house where he premiered the co-witness sites. It was by Richard Mann, I believe, going off memory, on the difference between irons and red dots for self-defense, and he did some tests with some people. He's got a good reputation in the industry. Yeah, I think he found that irons still generally outperform for self-defense situations, and it's only really at the long ranges and such that the red dots start really taking over for his guys. He still believes that it could be better in the end for red dots, but he thinks it might be shooters who are raised on red dots to really get to there. We'll see. I did do some math with his results about the because we did a study for a tactical class locally. The white papers on our website. It was we had a Walther PDP with our sites and a Walther PDP with the factory sites. Had people after the class test them out. All the volunteers, we had quite a good number. And we found an average of a 19% increase in speed and 21% increase in accuracy. So I also plugged that into his numbers, and we found we became a lot more in advantage of the irons, even though there already were. There was only one drill at the end at the very long range where the red dot still outperformed based on that number percentage change. Like I said, we already think that the co-witness version is going to be even better for all those all around.
Yeah, I would agree. And like I was saying before too, I think that if you're just picking up a pistol to shoot, it's much quicker to align the iron sights than it would be a red dot, especially if you're not familiar with it. So that's where I think the iron sights definitely have an advantage. And like we talked about, if you're in a defensive situation where there's a lot of stressors going on, the iron, especially at close range, the irons might actually be better for some people.
It seems this is still the average.
Yeah, I mean, my carry, well, I have a couple of them, but one of them has iron sights. So
To be fair, the big windows can get in the way of a lot of options there when you're just carrying them around. You always got to make that sacrifice at all balance.
Yep, that is absolutely for sure. The bigger guns with the bigger sights are nice in the wintertime, and the smaller guns with the smaller sights are nicer in the summertime.
Cycle, isn't it? You go, well, maybe I can go a little small for a little more comfort. Maybe I can go a little bigger for a little more performance, and it just keeps going around and around and around.
At some point, we'll finally find that perfect balance, but at least the capacity is getting closer between small and big.
And at some point, a man's wife might be satisfied with her wardrobe as it is, but we live in hope.
Yeah, okay. So you're telling me it's never going to happen?
I am cautiously pessimistic, let's say.
That was all the stuff I wanted to talk about. It's very interesting, the whole... Let me go back to that other screen real quick. You can get the speed with the right image and a much more... Because I like to do ammo testing too. And with iron sights, it's much more difficult to be exactly precise, whereas with a dot on my pistol, I can be precise with every single shot. But this, it's nice that it gives you that option where you can line up the top edge of both the front sight and the rear sight, or if you're, whether it's an IDPA or a USPSA match or whatever, you can go with the sight on the right, which would be, to me, a little faster to quickly align your sights as well. I think this is a good graphic for showing the difference.
Yes. I also like Top Shot Dustin's YouTube review for us. He actually did cutouts of the sight pictures. We thought that was really cool.
Yeah, I saw that. That was a pretty good idea. So do you guys have any other models that you're going to be making them for? Anything in the works with that?
We've almost got our Smith & Wessons done. We're almost ready to get those out soon, God willing. And we're just taking it by market share and who's willing to partner with us. We've worked very hard on our supply chain recently, so we can do a lot more smaller batches faster too, which is good for us because, like I said, we're a small company and we're also debt-free, which is just a blessing. Thank the Lord.
And you guys are located in North Carolina. Is that where you do your manufacturing as well?
Our manufacturing is actually by our guys in Alabama. We have a partnership with some of them. We have a few other people as well we work with, but they're our main ones currently. And True Glow is actually who does our tritium insertion and our quality assurance. So we might be small, but we're working with some big names here.
Yeah, that's a big name.
There's only so many treatment suppliers out there. You got to work with them. We also try to keep everything made in the USA as much as possible. With the only exception is the tritium because the US sells it to Switzerland, who sells it back through True Glow. And like I said, only so many ones you can get from there. We try to keep everything in the US as much as possible.
Going around and working with these other companies, how's the reception been towards your sites?
Honestly, pretty overwhelmingly positive. Yeah, we rarely get someone who kind of proposed the idea. Usually they don't look too closely. I think online we've only had one bad review, period, that I've been able to find anyway. And that was someone who didn't realize the day sites don't glow in the dark. It's the plain polymer inserts, so I can't really say much there.
How did the open house go at the Glock store?
Well, like I said, the reception was overwhelming. I already gave you a Chad's quote, the NSW operator, former NSW. Said it feels like a magic trick. We also met a gentleman who works at Black Frog Arms just down the road from where Glock Stores is. And he says, quote, I really am a believer in this. It helps target acquisition immensely, especially with red dots. So we're planning to go back down there next month, actually, for an event they're holding.
They even have their own Glock competition. Be interesting to see how people do if they were to use those sights on their guns in that type of competition too.
Very interesting. Looking forward to seeing the results there.
Well, John, that's everything I had. Was there anything else you wanted to talk about before we go?
I could go in the history of side fire. Like I said, it's a little more niche, but I will say that, like I said, the use of them is relatively recent. Before Jeff Cooper, a lot of people did point shooting. And you've probably seen like a World War II, 1911. You've seen the sight pictures on those things. Those things are terrible. So there has been some evolution over time. It's just much more recent than people think. My patent attorney actually mentioned when I got this patent that there wasn't very much prior art at all for pistols, especially. It's mostly been a variation of the notch and post, but like I said, if you look at it in detail, it's been a fair amount of shifting just relatively recently. Once you start getting the sights big enough to see, it was only a couple of decades before red dots started coming out. Before then, it was mostly just colors and stuff. Excess big dot sights. Actually, Emerson, the inventor of excess big dots, actually saw my sights early on. He quite liked them. That was cool. And yeah, ghost rings and stuff. But there's nothing quite like this, I believe.
Is the website the one place that they can find you, or are you anywhere else?
We also sell through places like Lock Store, Optics Planet, and a few other resellers. We're working with a few more to get that up and running right now, actually. So
Okay.
we are expanding our reach quite quickly. But naturally, I'd like you to buy through us if you have an option, because that's just the way business works.
Is this something that the casual shooter can put on in their garage?
As long as you got the proper sight pushers, that's all you need. You can buy those off Amazon for a couple bucks if you don't already have them. It's very easy. We change the sights here all the time. Just all the time to get the test going. So yeah, there's almost no learning curve. A lot of gun ranges will do it also just for free because it's easy.
Well, John, I appreciate you coming on. It's been a good conversation. I wish you well.
Thank you for having me, David. I wish you well too. Please feel free to reach out anytime.
Will do. Have a great day.
Have a great day and God bless.